Hello, everyone. Welcome to TeloYouth Wednesday morning special webinar. Today we have Dr. Chris and Dr. Tina on the line. They have a combined 60 years of experience as naturopathic practitioners. They are internationally renowned educators and speakers. And most importantly, they are the formulators of our incredible products, Uranium Serum and TeloYouth. Good morning, Dr. Chris, Dr. Tina.
Good morning, MJ. Good morning, everyone out there.
Thank you, MJ. Good morning to everyone. What a great day it is. Here we are. I hope everyone's doing well in quarantine. So, we're gonna help you understand kind of what's happening out here in the world. Hopefully, we can all circle back and really focus on what matters, and that is building our immune system. And so when we talk about what we're dealing with here, we're looking at what we call the perfect storm. We have these aging populations, the cities are overcrowded, we have these highly concentrated presence of non-native EMFs. We've been compromising diet, poor lifestyle habits, and then, we've got a growing population of compromised immune systems here with this meets this highly contagious virus, and here we have this perfect storm. So when we look at the COVID-19 virus, it's enveloped. It has a glycoprotein shell around it. And we're going to address that a little bit later and why TeloYouth works so well to help with COVID-19. But it's also an RNA virus. And what that means is that this virus can get inside our cells and it can replicate. And it makes it easy for this virus to jump species and have a very high mutation rate. And what we're overall seeing here out in the public is about 85% of those that have exposure to COVID-19 have little to no symptoms. Around 13% end up with respiratory and flu-like conditions. Then we're getting about 1 to 2% at a fatal response. And the scary thing about this is that when we look at our healthcare providers, they're experiencing 5 times higher those rates of fatalities and symptoms because they have so much stress. They're overexposed and they're dealing with a lot of stressors.
Okay, well, our next slide here, it illustrates essentially what's happening with this virus. We have different layers of immunity, and it's interesting that what we're learning from the public presentations is pretty much how to just keep our distance and wash our hands and wear our masks, but no one's really addressing the internal dynamics that happen. The virus itself enters in through the respiratory tract and also through the intestinal tract. And both of these parts of the body, both of these tracts have an epithelial tissue lining. And what this means is that there's very specific receptor sites on this lining that allows the virus to attach to. And this is why it's important to understand we have these different lines of defense. And that first line of defense is the mucosa membrane, and it's what's on the surface of these epithelial cells that are on the lining. And our immune system is really very strong as long as we have a healthy, let's say mucosa lining and epithelial cell response. And so a lot of it has to do with good hydration. A lot of it has to do with strengthening our immune system, with our lifestyle. And these are the things that we're going to be getting into today. So it's really important to understand that both of these areas are large surfaces, like the surface of your intestinal tract is, you have 20 feet of intestine, but it's almost like the surface size of a tennis court. And we all know that you have all these different branches that go into your lung tissue and the alveoli where the oxygen exchange happens. These areas are full of, again, immune cells, immune factors that protect ourselves. Because again, the exposure to the outside is most vulnerable in these areas, from the foods we eat, and obviously the air we breathe is full of debris, and now we have these microbes that we're so concerned about. So our immune system is built up to handle these kinds of stressors, these kinds of invaders. And so we're going to get into just how TeloYouth supports the strengthening and buildup of these areas, as well as the lifestyle things that we can do to really help protect ourselves. So Dr. Tina, you want to go to the next slide?
Sure. And when we look at our immune system, it's our human operating system. When we take care of our immune system, we're fundamentally taking care of our whole body. So to just help us understand, our bodies are managed by this operating system. It's like the software of a computer and how it works with hardware. If we break the rules of the system, it breaks down our body. And our immune system, it's so powerful. Our immune system responds to everything that we're exposed to, including how we think, our beliefs, how we feel, how we respond, or react. It also responds to everything that we're exposed to. And that's like Dr. Chris was talking about, everything we breathe, we eat, we drink, we touch, we smell, we hear. Toxins affect our immune system. Good food affects our immune system. So everything in our environment actually touches our immune system. And all of our systems are interconnected, and they all circle back to the immunity, our immune system. And our immune system is meant to be used. In other words, it's okay if every once in a while we have an invader, but it's not meant to be continually overstressed. And when it's overstressed for long periods of time, this operating system can't reboot. And then it becomes attacked by, like, this perfect storm, the viruses that we have, like COVID-19, and pretty soon it becomes really weak. And our antiviral software in our immune system becomes obsolete. It can't work and it can't function very well. And this is what we're talking about with the perfect storm that we're in today. And it's interesting that it's not just, in one area. It's global. And we've always been exposed to viruses. We've always been exposed to pathogens. It's just that in this time and place, our operating system, or our immune system, is overwhelmed. So this is a video that we're going to show that actually illustrates a healthy response to an invader, and you can see how this works in the body, our immune system.
Neutrophils are white blood cells that hunt and kill bacteria. In this spread, a neutrophil is seen in the midst of red blood cells. A Staphylococcus aureus bacterium has been added. The bacterium releases a chemoattractant that is sensed by the neutrophil. The neutrophil becomes polarized and starts chasing the bacterium. The bacterium, bounced around by thermal energy, moves in a random path, seeming to avoid its predator. Eventually, the neutrophil catches up with the bacterium and engulfs it by phagocytosis. Neutrophils are...
I love the sound effects of our video. But what we'd like to share is that the immune system has two big layers, in a sense, or two dynamics, and there's the innate And this is the first response. This is what we build up as we age, you know, from the time we're born. We really adapt to our environment and build up our immunity. And then we have the acquired immune part of our system. And this is the one that adapts according to the types of invaders, so that we recognize these invaders and have a built-in immunity, an acquired immunity. So it takes time to adapt. So the first response is the response that we're talking about to build up so that you have the greater resistance to any type of invader, whether it's a virus or bacteria or just the stressors of life. And when you hear about vaccines and what we're trying to do from the conventional approach, that's going straight to your acquired immunity, building up, giving you antigens, giving you aspects that build up your acquired immune system. So when you look at the ingredients of TeloYouth, one of its key ingredients is the aloe vera gel extract. And it's very specific in its ability to reduce inflammation, which is so key to prevent the cytokine storm, you know, as well as the intracellular antioxidants that help scavenge free radicals. So these first two dynamics are so important for the reduction of inflammation and the overreaction of the immune system, which is lethal in the cases of this viral epidemic that we're experiencing, or pandemic. And what you saw in the video is the antimicrobial effect, the antiviral effect. So this first line of defense is there, the white blood cells, the immune system that recognizes a foreign invader and immediately attacks it. And we're going to show another video that allows us to understand the layers of protection that exist, because those first layers of the mucosal lining and the endothelial tissue have to be penetrated. But the virus then, once it's inside the body, it has to penetrate the cell, and the cell has this forest of protection around it. And we're going to show you a video here that helps show this next line of protection, because the virus is trying to get into our genetic material, into our nucleus, where it can grab our own material and replicate itself, because the virus itself isn't a live entity. It's something that needs something in order to replicate and you know, produce itself. So Dr. Tina, do you want to get into our next video?
Sure. Inside cells, these sugars combine with protein strands and form complex structures called glycoforms. The exterior of a healthy cell is covered with a dense forest of these glycoforms. Glycoforms can exchange infinite combinations of information depending on their shape and charge. Glycoforms are present on the surface of all cells and actually prevent viruses, bacteria, and other enemy cells from entering a healthy cell by blocking the entrance to the cell's surface. Glycoforms can hold on to an enemy cell until an immune system cell can arrive to destroy it. Healthy immune system cells can also accurately identify normal cells and not interfere with their function. Cells covered with glycoforms enable clear and accurate cell-to-cell and system-to-system communication, creating an information superhighway within the body. Glycoforms play a vital role in every human physiological process: immune system response, tissue regeneration, cell replication, growth, and structural stability. They are even responsible for the attraction of sperm cells to an egg cell surface to foster fertilization. Without vital sugars and a variety of other micronutrients, cells cannot create glycoforms. The result is a breakdown in cellular communication and immune system response. Depleted cells are unable to defend themselves effectively, so cell structures can be damaged and are not effective in healing and regenerating. In this weakened state, cells cannot communicate effectively compromising the body's ability to identify problems. They are also unable to destroy pathogens such as viruses, bacteria, and fungi, and cannot identify mutated cells so the immune system can eliminate them. For example, when a person suffers from an autoimmune disorder, their compromised immune system may respond inappropriately and treat altered normal cells as intruders and destroy them. It may allow mutated cells to proliferate, or the immune system may not respond at all, leaving the body extremely vulnerable to many types of infectious agents.
Okay, that's a great video, Dr. Tina, that really expresses all the different dynamics of the operating system that you were describing. And can see when we have this healthy forest of glycoforms on the surface of the cell, just another layer or boundary that keeps viruses and bacteria just out of our harm's way, in a sense, so that the immune system can access them and destroy them. So all this is so critical to understanding that the right nutrients and the specific ingredients in TeloYouth and the aloe vera gel with its mannose molecules specifically supports the exercising the immune system, as well as providing the components that the glycoforms need to maintain themselves and to regenerate on the cell surface. So on the next slide, we're going to take a look at the whole process of understanding that we're energy beings first. And with this loss of energy as we age, as we are exposed to greater stressors throughout life, we really compromise our health and vitality. And what we're trying to share with you here is that when you get at the core of how the body makes its energy, and that's the mitochondria, these are these tiny little bacteria-like entities that are in our cells, and they can number in the thousands. When you look at the high energy cells like the heart cell, the brain cell, the immune cells, they have thousands, anywhere from 1 to 5,000 mitochondria within them. And this is what we're trying to maintain, and the TeloYouth specifically helps with the repair and regeneration of our mitochondria. So think of it this way. We're energy beings first, and our energy allows us to have our youth and vitality and our ability to handle stress. And that supports our redox, and that happens through our oxygen exchange, and redox essentially means our energy potential. And that energy potential is what facilitates our immune response, and our strong immunity depends upon this vibrant, healthy numbers of mitochondria that build up our redox potential, that strengthens our immunity, and then our immune system takes care of the rest of us. I mean, it really interfaces with the other systems, as Dr. Tina mentioned, and then also really just protects us and defends us. So you see this breakdown process that happens with stress and age. And when you have something that overwhelms the system, this is how you get organ failure. This is how you see individuals that the fatalities that are being counted from this viral pandemic that we're being exposed to. So understand that we're energy beings first, and everything we can do to support that energy production, these are the things that we're educating here on the call today. Next slide, please.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some major stressors that are weakening our immunity. And there's 3 of them that are really assaulting our system that we want to talk about today. And the first one is the non-native EMFs, those electromagnetic frequencies. We are being bombarded. And it's interesting, it's like you think of a pot of boiling water, and you put, I don't like this metaphor, but you put the frog in the boiling pot of water and they won't jump out because they're just being slowly inundated with this heat. And that's kind of what we're dealing with here on the planet. We're all being exposed to these non-native EMFs, and that means that we are, it's something that's not natural to our human body. It's assaulting us. We're also going to talk about our disrupted circadian rhythms and how that's affecting our immune system, and then our weakened microbiome. And what can we do to help all of these? So the first thing is with looking at this electromagnetic spectrum. You can see that there's a health spectrum here, and there's the ultraviolet light. You can see the rainbow, and there's a little bit to the left we can get exposed to infrared, and a little bit to the right we can get exposed to what we call that X-ray, but it's more of a frequency that's not harmful for us. So when we look at this health spectrum, and this is what we want to be exposed to. This is our natural form of light. You see the sunshine in the middle there. And it's so important that we get that sunlight. However, if you look at what we've been exposed to for years and decades, you look to the left and you can see the radio waves moving into the infrared. And these are things that we've just taken for granted. We have these cell towers, these radio frequency towers, all of the computer systems, our phones and everything that we're constantly being exposed to. And then over to the far right, you can see these other non-native electromagnetic frequencies that really harm the body excessively, and that's the X-rays and the gamma rays. And we need to step back and figure out, how do we protect ourselves from this? Because this is what's assaulting our immune system. Dr. Chris, do you have anything you want to add here?
No, just the fact, though, that we're practicing the social distancing and being a little bit more reclusive in our homes. I hope people are taking advantage of being outdoors instead of inside and exposing themselves more to all the technologies and the electromagnetic fields.
Exposure to the sun instead of outside of this health spectrum, either to the left or to the right.
Exactly.
And one of our ingredients that we have specifically, consciously put into our TeloYouth formula is the Chaga mushroom, because it is the super protector. And it has vast amounts of melanin in it. And it's so great because it captures and generates energy for the body. It helps our mitochondria. It helps convert sunlight and ionizing radiation for us to be able to use that energy. And it also has, with this melanin, it has many protective properties that help us against that EMF exposure. And the other thing about the Chaga mushroom, it helps our immune system. And it's actually an immune modulator. So it helps boost our immunity when it's needed. And it slows the immunity when it's overreactive. And so this is one of the ingredients that is just so wonderful that help us.
What we want to do on this next slide is give you a sense of what happens inside the cell with these electromagnetic fields that we're being exposed to. And especially now that it's been magnified to the 5G level, and it's going to continue to increase without our ability to say whether we want it or not. So the bottom line is that when these non-native frequencies come into our system, immediately it starts to destroy the electrolyte balance, meaning the balance between the minerals inside and outside the cell. So you have this calcium-magnesium balance that is so critical to cellular function. The calcium ions start to leach into the cell, and it really destroys cellular function, like I said, the electrolyte balance and the hydration, the water levels. And hydration is so critical to just everything that happens in the body, the movement of energy, the function of all the biochemistry. And some of the other features is that you see that there's far more free radicals are created. And this increases the inflammation, increases the swelling. And this is specifically seen in the lung tissue, where you have greater edema and exposure to all these free radicals that leads to infection. And this is the pneumonia that gets diagnosed and becomes so lethal to the individual. And last but not the least is the ability for the cell to repair and replace itself. So when you lose this ability for autophagy and mitophagy, the mitochondria and the cell itself to repair itself, you create greater debris. And the greater debris you have in your system, you expose yourself to the virus, because the virus is a scavenger. It's looking for the debris to replicate itself. So all the microbes essentially that proliferate in the body proliferate far greater than and overwhelm the immune system when you have this buildup of debris and toxins throughout the system. So it's really to understand that these added stressors that disrupt cellular function really cause a lot of harm. And Dr. Tina, let's go into that third area that it's also critical to the immune system.
Sure, I'd like to just add though, if I could give you a metaphor on 4G versus 5G and the big differences. It's just like 4G, think of it as a 2-lane highway. But when you think about 5G, think of it as an 8-lane highway without speed limits. The intensity of what we're dealing with this 5G EMF. So it's going to accelerate that turning on the fire inside the body, as Dr. Chris was mentioning. It's going to accelerate dehydration. It's going to accelerate some of these, the things that affect our immune system so much quicker. And there's no mistake that Wuhan, China had 10,000 5G towers that were turned on in the last 6 months of last year, and their immune systems were even more compromised. So when we talk about where this virus took off from, think about the correlation between the 5G implementation, and you look at how the COVID-19 accelerated out of Wuhan, China. One of the things we've talked about is we know that our immune system, 70% of our immune system resides in our gut. And when Dr. Chris was talking about how the virus can invade our body and kind of take hold, one of the areas is in the small intestines. And we have been, as a culture, so bad about taking care of our guts. And some of it, we have as a culture or as a society, we really don't have control over. And when I think about that, it's like our water system. Our water system is inundated with meds and chemicals that we seriously cannot get out of the water effectively. So no matter what, we are going to have these toxins. We have the toxins in the air. We have so many things that we're exposed to. But what we have to do is we have to step back and say, okay, what can we control to rebuild back our gut? Because things that assault our gut actually affect our immune system. So if we're over consuming alcohol and sugar and taking medications and eating foods that have glyphosates, and they're showing this big correlation between glyphosates and the breaking down of our immune system and allowing this virus to come in and take over the body. We need to be really conscious about what we're eating and how do we support the good bacteria. So inside our gut, there's always this battle going on of the bad bacteria versus the good bacteria. And all of those things I talked about, they feed the bad bacteria. If you take an antibiotic, it completely wipes out both good and bad bacteria, and you have to rebuild the good bacteria as fast as you possibly can. So you do that by eating your good foods, implementing the good hygiene practices, making sure you're eating fermented foods that come from nature. And you can look those up on the internet. There's a lot of them, and you'll see which ones are drawn to you. And then taking a good probiotic is a therapeutic good probiotic. Now, I mean, I used to say to my clients, you can take 1 or 2, during the week. But as we're getting into such a compromised situation, we need to be taking probiotics pretty much on a daily basis. Dr. Chris, do you want to add anything to this?
No, just if we go to the next slide, we see how important the sun is. The sun also supports our healthy microbiome. That's why getting outdoors and getting into the sunlight is so critical. And it supports that 24-hour circadian cycle. This is how we've evolved, and we're so plugged into nature. It's so important to understand the sun and the earth are here for the life-giving energies that our body needs. And we're educating all these dynamics of lifestyle because, again, to understand and appreciate how we can strengthen, vitalize ourselves, because, again, we lose the fear from these foreign invaders that we don't see and don't understand. So the mind is the most powerful pharmacist. So learning how to better care for yourself and how to deal with the different types of stressors that we face is so important. But the next thing we like to share is the sun is the most broad spectrum nutrient that you can obtain. So when we talk about diet and nutrition, we say, well, you want a rainbow diet, you want to eat fruits and vegetables from all the different colors of the rainbow. Well, guess where all those colors come from? They come from all the different frequencies that you have contained in the sun. So that morning sunlight gives you the infrared that you need to make the melatonin that you use at night to get the good sleep, to make the dopamine, to make all the different chemicals. So you set the circadian cycle up first thing in the morning, and you start to introduce the cortisols that give you energy rather than the cortisols that keep you awake at night when they don't turn off. And so at the 12 o'clock sun, that midday sun is so important because that's when the healthy blue light that you want to receive for your energy and your vitality. And that's where the UVB is dominant, and you make your vitamin D, and vitamin D is not just for strong bones, but it's for your immune system. It's like vaccinating yourself when you have a strong vitamin D production in your body. And then, of course, at nighttime, these light signals start to change again, and you get back more into the reds. You see the beautiful sunset. Well, that beautiful sunset is telling your body to slow down and get ready for sleep and repair and activating your immune response at night. So you see how important all these different dynamics of nature play on our health and well-being. And Dr. Tina, if we work with this circadian cycle, we get the benefits of one of the most important dynamics, and that's the sleep state. And if you want to share a little bit more on that on the next slide.
Sure, I will. The one thing that I'd like people to take a look at here, though, is you see where this blue light is in the middle of the day where the sun is high. What we're doing is when the sun goes down, we are still exposing ourselves and overexposing ourselves to the blue light with our phones and with our TVs. And that's what's partly what's throwing off our circadian rhythm. And so what happens is we end up with this low energy, with all of this excess blue light. When our energy is low, our mitochondria is low, our redox is low, we end up with low resiliency. Our immune system gets compromised. We have greater stress. Our stressors are just hitting us. then our cortisols are increasing. And when our cortisol is increased, we have poor sleep. And poor sleep equals poor rejuvenation. We have to rebalance those circadian rhythms. And there's great blue blocker glasses that you can use if you're going to be watching TV after the sun goes down or looking at your computer, and that will help some of that. But the other thing is that when our cortisols are locked in a higher state, what happens is our melatonin is low. And when our melatonin stays low and our cortisols are high, that's when we just end up awake at night. And so what TeloYouth does is it actually, when we start to take it, it helps to unlock that cortisol cycle, bringing our cortisols down back into balance so that our melatonin can increase. And that's when we see people able to go back to sleep at night. The other thing that's really important with our melatonin, we need to have higher melatonin. It's produced in the pineal gland, but it also helps us with depression. It helps us with being an anti-inflammatory, and it helps deal with damaged tissues. So melatonin is so important. So we have to allow those cortisols to come back down so our melatonin can come back into balance. And how do we do that? We do that through our fertilized tissue extract. And it's been clinically proven to lower stress by measuring cortisols. And if you would like to look at those studies, they are, for all of you members, in the library in your back office. And when we're in the middle of stressful times, it's okay to take more of your TeloYouth. As a matter of fact, it's highly recommended. And if you haven't broken that cortisol cycle yet, you can increase your TeloYouth, and it will help to truly break that cortisol cycle so you can get back into that rejuvenating sleep. And that's why we call our FTE the super rejuvenator and super recharger. And then we also have our Rhodiola Rosea, which is our super relaxer, and that also helps calm the mind, the body, and the emotions, and it helps us to adapt to stressors. And this has been used for centuries in Chinese medicine, the Rhodiola, to help calm that central nervous system.
You know, Dr. Tina, you're talking about stress mediation, and you know, we had a 3-year educational tour around the world, and we knew specifically, you know, breaking our circadian cycles when we were in China and Russia and Kazakhstan and Europe. All these long distance trips threw off our circadian cycles, and that stress really took a toll on our health and well-being. But we had the understanding of how to regenerate and repair. And, you know, taking TeloYouth allowed for our stem cell production to be much more, let's say, active and vital, because what we're doing is that when we're stressing ourselves, we're traumatizing the cells, and the cells call out for repair. And these signal molecules that are sent out by the immune system and that are, you know, first of all, the cell sends out its danger response, and then this is picked up by the immune system, and the immune system immediately knows how to communicate in order to make more stem cells and release those stem cells. And this happens in the bone marrow where we make our stem cells. But those stem cells have to be activated. So all our ingredients combined facilitate this process. Now, we're seeing how new cells build back our telomeres, which essentially is our immunity, our ability to revitalize and strengthen our immunity. It brings back our redox potential, which is our energy. So we experience our energy back again, like when we were younger. And of course, all of the dynamics that are enhanced with this, the immune system gives us greater protection. So here's just somewhat of the cycle that happens in the body every day that you take your TeloYouth and facilitate its activity and its ability to do its thing with our good lifestyle habits and support. The other two ingredients that we haven't mentioned yet that are part of our formula are the L-Arginine. We refer to it as a super builder because it reinforces our body's ability to make growth hormone. And when your body makes the growth hormone, it doesn't break any feedback loops. So if this is something you were to take artificially because of aging and the decline of growth hormone, you'd find that it has some other dynamics that compromise the body. So we're giving you a natural amino acid that facilitates this building process, then the repair process. Also, there's the marine collagen, and it has multiple forms of collagen that facilitates the strengthening and building of the body. The collagen is the glue that holds your cells together. And when you have this strong, tight-knit structure of the cells, it makes it harder for any type of microbe, specifically a virus, to penetrate the cell. So you see, again, this reinforces those layers of immunity that we were talking about, building those glycoforms, having strong collagen. And collagen also supports the body's ability to signal and communicate. So it's like the wiring of the system. So you have all these electrodynamic, photoelectric effects that circulate through the body, as well as the electrical potential that's maintained through the collagen. So every ingredient supports your strength, vitality, and well-being, and overall at this time, your protection and defense mechanisms.
Exactly, and thank you for that. So what can you do besides taking TeloYouth? We have some very specific lifestyle recommendations here, and the first is intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating. Intermittent fasting is where you have a certain window that you eat and a larger window when you don't eat. And so I'll give you an example. A lot of people that start with intermittent fasting, they will have a 12-hour window where they will actually consume calories. And then for 12 hours, there are none. And that's a great way to start. And even if you did it 5 days a week, that's a great way to start. And then what we really suggest is getting that feeding window, that eating window where you have calories within 6 to 8 hours of the day, and the rest of the time, no calories. And why do we recommend this? Because this promotes autophagy, and that's a new term that's out there. And autophagy means self-eating, and it's a good thing. And autophagy is a method by which our body cleans out damaged cells and toxins, and it helps us to regenerate newer, healthier cells. And over time, our cells accumulate a variety of dead organelles and damaged proteins and oxidized particles. And all this does is it clogs up our body's inner workings. And this is when we start to feel the aging, and the age-related diseases start to pop up because our cells aren't able to divide and function normally. So our body has its own unique way of ridding itself of those faulty parts, and it defends itself naturally, and it promotes a healthy immune system, and that's through autophagy. So an example that I'd like to give you is, think of your body as a kitchen. After you make a meal, you clean up the counter, you throw away the leftovers, and you recycle some of the food. Well, the next day you have a clean kitchen. This is autophagy working very efficiently. Now think of the same scenario, but you're older and you're not as efficient. After you make a meal, you leave remnants on the counter. Some of it gets into the garbage, but some of it doesn't. The scraps linger on the counter, the garbage, the recycling bin, and they never make it out the door to the dumpster. And toxic waste starts to build up in your kitchen. It starts to ferment on the floor, and you get all this nasty stuff going on. So due to the onslaught of pollutants and toxins, you're actually having a hard time keeping up with the daily grime. And this scenario resembles autophagy that's not working as well as it should. So when we think about autophagy, it usually hums along quietly behind the scenes in maintenance mode. And it's the role in which your body responds to periods of stress, and it maintains balance and regular cellular function. So how do we increase our autophagy? Because this is really important. If we can get our body to self-clean, it's going to take off so much pressure on our immune system. Number one, eat a high-fat, low-carb diet and work with this. You know, everyone's a little bit different. Go on a protein fast. And what does that mean? Restrict a day or two during the week where you eat very little to no protein that day. Practice this intermittent fasting that I just talked about. And the other thing is exercise. Exercise truly helps autophagy. And when we're looking at autophagy, it's stimulated by high intensity interval training and weight training. So there's a lot of different ways through exercise this can work. The other thing that really supports autophagy is, guess what? That really good restorative sleep. So when we talk about the benefits, they so outweigh, you know, if you can have a little bit of, I guess it's kind of like discipline. If you can do that, you will give yourself so many benefits. And some of the other lifestyle things that I'd like to mention here, get that good restorative sleep. TeloYouth will help you with that. It'll help unlock that cortisol cycle. Get 8 or more hours a day. Dr. Chris talked about the sunshine. Get outside. Other nutrients you can incorporate. Vitamin C, 1 to 2 grams a day. D3, K2, and A, and omegas, all of those are found in cod liver oil. Get outside and exercise. And it's interesting when we're talking about exercise here, just on Monday in the Journal of Natural Metabolism, or excuse me, Nature Metabolism, it's been proven that consistent exercise slows down the degenerative process. Aerobic exercise can actually reverse our aging effect, and it's essential at helping our muscle stem cells regenerate. So exercise has so much more to offer other than just, you know, autophagy. Hydration, make sure you're drinking at least half your body weight of ounces in water on a daily basis. Wear a mask, practice your social distancing of 6 feet, and wash your hands often. Dr. Chris, would you like to add anything?
No, let's just wrap it up and just help everyone understand that, you know, this webinar is for educational purposes, and we want to make sure that you work closely with your own healthcare practitioners locally. And we just wanted to help you understand a little bit more about, in the news, the daily environment, you're hearing about all the external things that you can do to protect yourself, but now you know some of the internal dynamics that can really keep you safe and healthy during these trying times. So share this with those you know. This is great information, and make sure that you work with your healthcare provider and understand that we're here to help you understand and educate you further on the wonderful benefits of what TeloYouth does to support your overall system, and as well as the good lifestyle practices that support it and make it even better. So thank you all for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.